here's the following link that I'm going to put in the chat box for you. So for those of you who are interested in joining tonight, you can join. And here is the link that I just placed in the chat box for those of you who are interested in joining our illustrious team. Also, as you can see, there's also we meet every third Tuesday of the month. So this third Tuesday of September, we're going to meet at 7 p.m. All of our meetings will be virtual, and you can engage with us through social media by band, which is Bowie High School PTSO. Our Facebook, search for Bowie High School PTSO. Our Twitter handle, which is Bowie HSPTSO, and then our email address, which is BowieHighPTSO@gmail.com. All right. So with that, without further ado, all that said, I would like to shut my mouth so that you can hear from our very own principal, Mr. Croucher. Mr. Croucher, it's all yours, sir.
Hey, Dr. Brent and community, everyone, good evening. My name is Joe Kautzer, or Mr. K. It's Mr. Kautzer, like a cow on a farm, Dr. Brent. There's no sauerkrautzer here. I'm from Wisconsin. It's just Kautzer, kid, like a cow. Yes, I want to wish everyone, happy fall, happy first day of September. I hope everyone is staying safe. First of all, there's been some really unbelievably weird and wacky and awful weather out there. Some bad tornadoes east of us I've seen. I hope everyone is staying safe. You clearly have electricity right now because you're on Zoom and joining us. And so I'm glad that that's true, but please stay safe and continue to monitor the weather out there. Can you give me, I'm going to take, what I'm going to do, Dr. Brent, if you could stop sharing, please. I'm going to share my own, but we are at our capacity on Zoom right now. And I was just in the middle of sending a text message to all families because we are live streaming this on Zoom. So what I'm going to do though is give a second for my teammates to introduce themselves. And while they're doing that, I'm going to text the whole community the YouTube link so others who are trying to join us can do so. So team members, if you could please introduce yourselves and just say your name and what grade level you work with. Give me 1 second. I'm going to share my screen because I have a slide to go along with this. Forgive me while I am multitasking.
Greetings, Bowie family and community. My name is Rashida Addison, and I am the liaison administrator for the 11th grade, class of 2023, as well as the English department and world language department.
And greetings, family. You all formerly knew me as the partner for class of 2023. I am Aisha Mahoney, and I thought I would follow up Miss Addison to let everyone know I am now 9th grade. So Miss Addison will have our babies. I have letters L through Z, and I still support social studies, technology, and ESOL. I'm gonna toss it to you, Mr. Jackson.
I'll go ahead while we wait for Mr. Jackson. My name is Miss Delaney, and I am super excited to work again with our incredible seniors at Bowie. I just worked with the most recent graduates of Bowie High School, but I'm thrilled to be back with the class of 2022. I am supporting the math department as well as the professional school counselors. So I'm looking forward to an incredible and exciting year.
Good evening, Bowie community. I'm Darren Lee. I cover all grades. I support special ed, athletics, JROTC, and I saw someone in the chat with a transportation question. I am your transportation person as well.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Andre Esters, and I am the grade 10 administrator. I support the science department, physical education, health and testing.
And I'm not, Mr. Jackson, are you with us or do I need to jump in? I know he was on, but he may have got kicked off. So Mr. Joshua Jackson will remain with ninth grade. So he was with ninth grade last year as well. He has letters A through K, and he supports music and art along with PBIS.
Thank you. Ms. King, are you on air? And if not, we have Ms. Helen King, who is our administrator supporting all student attendance interventions across all grade levels this year. And once again, I'm Joe Kautzer, or Mr. K, principal of Bowie High. So thank you all for joining us this evening. Really, the goal of this meeting tonight is to be able to talk about coming back to school. You know, last spring, when we were getting ready to leave last school year, we had a lot of thoughts and hopes that we'd be returning to this school year with very few restrictions in mind related to COVID-19. But we know very much now that that is not the case. And so we want to take some time to be able to talk to the community. I know 75% of our students are returning this year have never spent an entire year in Bowie High School. And so knowing that coming in, we wanted to do as much forward communication up front as we could to talk to the community, to talk to students, and to let people know, give an idea what to expect this school year, and to give an opportunity with PTSO to help moderate a Q&A forum with us, just so we could try to calm whatever anxieties we can, to let people know what type of safety procedures we're putting in place to be able to maximize student safety for our staff, as well as maximize student learning at the same time. Okay, and so oftentimes this is a balancing act, and we want to talk about what that act looks like. We also have some other team members joining us tonight. I don't know if they're able to unmute themselves. I've been playing with that setting here, but Ms. Kaplan and team, I know several of you here. Are you able to unmute yourselves?
Yes, I am, Mr. Kautzer. Good evening, Bowie High Bulldog family. I am Ms. Megan Kaplan, one of the school counselors at Bowie High School, servicing the main building, 10th through 12th grade, the end of the Alpha, STAQ through Z, and I also serve as the department chair. And I'm joined tonight by two of our other phenomenal counselors, and I will now turn it over to them to introduce themselves.
Good evening. I am Ms. Lopez. I am the counselor for CLF through HEL, grades 10 through 12.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Ms. Hubin, counselor for students, last names HEM through MC, grades 10 through 12. Thanks for joining us tonight.
So thank you, professional school counselors, for being here, and they'll be standing by to answer questions in the chat. And when we get to any general Q&A later, if other questions come up that are really pertinent to their work, they'll be able to chime in and support. So thank you, Ms. Lopez, Ms. Hubin, and Ms. Kaplan for your support tonight. So looking ahead, we have a couple of important dates to keep in mind. This coming Friday, September 3rd, is it's not just our 9th grade orientation, it's an orientation for 9th graders, 10th graders, and really 11th graders, and any other students who are new to Bowie High School. Talk about that on the next slide in a minute. September 8th, next week, 1 week from today, is the first day of school for all students. And then September 22nd, a couple weeks from now, we're looking at our virtual back to school night. The district is saying that they're asking all schools to do a virtual back to school night. And so that is what Bowie High School will be doing as well. And I thought last year, it worked really quite well. And we had a lot of feedback from the community members that they would like us to continue that. So I'm happy to say that we are continuing with another virtual back to school night. We'll have more information about the mechanics of what that looks like in the days and weeks ahead. But first things first, let's talk about this Friday. There's been a lot of questions about how this orientation day is going to look and feel and what it's going to be about. So again, this Friday will be an orientation day for the following students. All 9th grade students will have transportation provided, and they'll be having the orientation at just where they'll be having their classes up at their 9th grade campus, which is on 3021 Bel Air Drive in Bowie, Maryland. That's if you're dropping your students off. that is where you can take them that particular morning at 7:45 a.m. That is that we are an early school, and students, it's time to get back to the early mornings. So 7:45 a.m. is the start of our school day, and that is when our orientation begins on Friday. We're also welcoming all 10th grade students into our main building. Transportation is being provided by our school system for those students as well. Okay. Additionally, we are also welcome because our 11th grade students, most of which have never spent an entire year in our main campus, we wanted to welcome those students the opportunity to come in on orientation as well. However, the district is not going to be providing transportation for those 11th or 12th grade students at this time. It's really a unique feature of Bowie High School because we're one of the few high schools that has two campuses, that our 11th grade students would be new to the building. But we think it makes very good sense that they should be included in this process and be able to participate. What are we doing during the orientation? Really, the goal of the day is to get the students into the building, to let them walk the halls and figure out where their first period A-day class is. And they'll be walking through their A-day schedule, periods 1 through 4. You only have 4 periods in a day, but all the students participating in orientation will walk through their A-day schedule, meet their teachers, and talk about other things related to how to take care of their business at Bowie High School. So again, these are the students who are participating, and it'll be from 7:45 a.m. until 10:45 a.m. This is a half-day schedule at Bowie High School, and transportation will start picking students up at 10:45 a.m. Team, looking through, are there any questions that came through in the chat that I need to address related to orientation day?
We've addressed most of the questions, Mr. Kausser. There was a question about if parents are allowed, and we shared that it's students only to maintain safe distancing, social distancing. There are some questions about Chromebooks, and we're addressing those things as well.
Fantastic, thank you. And thank you for monitoring the chat. I wouldn't be able to drive, monitor chat, and do it at the same time. So if a question does pop up that you think I should speak to, please do just stop me, okay? And I only have a brief presentation here to work through before we open it up to more general Q&A as well. What is the daily schedule like at Bowie High School on a typical day? Starting next week, Wednesday, the school day will begin at 7:45 a.m. Students will go through 4 class periods in a day, and the school day will end at 2:25 p.m. We are in the final revisions of our bell schedule. What we are trying to do is look at spacing out our lunch schedule in a different way, adding an additional lunch to minimize the number of students in the cafeteria at any one moment in time. And as a result, we are tweaking with the final times, start times and end times of our classes. And so that's why I say the final bell schedule is still under construction. We're tweaking with that and presenting that to staff and making sure everyone is on board before we share that with our full community. But we're almost there. But the basic facts are 7:45 a.m. to 2:25 p.m. That's what the community needs to know. For bus transportation info, and this is something, and we are lucky enough to have one of our bus transportation supervisors in our community, who also has a student at Bowie High School. Mr. Schutler, are you online? And did you want to speak? I know we talked briefly about you maybe just introducing yourself earlier. Is there anything that you wanted to say to the community about bus transportation?
Thanks, Mr. K. Just real briefly, we do have a severe driver shortage throughout the nation, and especially here in Prince George's County. At our Bowie bus lot, which is the one I oversee, we have 21 open positions for drivers. And so that's before anybody calls out or takes sick leave. So the buses will be running a little late. The postcards went out, and hopefully you received those in the mail. I got those today, actually, for my students. And I see several questions about the Stop Finder app, the questions there. You can shoot me an email. I'll put my email in the chat as well, but certainly I think your first point of contact would be Mr. Lee, because the way it is, it's filtered through the schools first, and then it comes to transportation. So whatever the schools have in School Max, and actually the schools get it from the parents, then it goes to transportation. So make sure you have your information in there accurately and correctly. your address, your email address. You do have to enter in your email address to be able to get the Stop Finder app. And so I ask you to be patient and bear with us, as there is a national shortage of school bus drivers. And like Mr. K said, I do have a student here in Bowie High School, so I certainly have a vested interest. And ironically, I oversee the Bowie bus lot. So certainly the whole community will see some late buses. So appreciate your patience with us and working. If you guys know anybody that's looking for a job, we do start out at $19.35 an hour, and we will help you get your CDL. Thank you, Mr. K.
You bet, Mr. Schuler. Thank you so much for serving our community and for providing that message. Mr. Schuler, real quick question. If and I hope you don't mind me asking you this, but if my child is waiting for their bus in the morning and the bus didn't seem to have come yet, who should I call?
You can certainly call the bus lot. And so the phone number to the bus lot, actually, I would encourage you to call 301-817.
Maybe you can put that in the chat.
I can put it in chat. All right, so I'll put that in the chat. Got it.
Thank you. Okay, so Mr. Schuler is going to put a number. If it would just so happen in the morning that a bus was running late or seems like it wasn't arriving, that would be the number that they could call in the morning. So thank you very much, Mr. Schuler. Please know, community too, that when buses are running late, particularly in the morning, we don't always know about it in the schoolhouse right in that moment. And we get that feedback oftentimes from parents who will call us to ask where a bus is. And the truth is we don't typically know where the buses are, particularly in the morning. In the afternoon, we can tell you which buses have shown up and which buses have not, because they come to us and we have the students board them. Okay. But in the mornings, we don't know which buses are here until they've actually come to the school to drop off their children.
Mr. Counselor, there are a couple of questions about Chromebook pickup for tomorrow. I don't know if you or Mr. Lee would want to address that, but there are some questions just about the logistics of picking up Chromebooks tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Lee, are you online able to speak to that? I believe our Chromebook pickup is from 9 to 11 a.m. tomorrow at the main building campus. Right, and you can drive right up, and it's only for students who have never received a Chromebook device. So it's not for swapping out old devices. It's not for repairing broken devices. It's for families and students who have never received a Chromebook device before. You can pull up to the main overhang right near the main entrance of Bowie High School in the circle between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. tomorrow. The weather's supposed to be much better tomorrow. I was told to be low humidity, maybe even some sunshine, and no more Hurricane Ida blowing through. But 9 a.m. tomorrow till 11, we'll be doing a Chromebook distribution. This will not be the only time that students can get a Chromebook device. I just want to add, we're just trying to provide a couple opportunities before school begins for students who have never received a device to get one. There will be plenty of ample opportunities when the school year begins, starting on Wednesday, September 8th, and even some opportunities during the orientation day for students who do not have devices to be able to get one. So don't feel like if you don't have a device that you have to get to school between 9 and 11 tomorrow. That is absolutely not the case. We're just trying to provide opportunities for students and families to hit the ground running and have the materials before the school year starts.
Thank you, Mr. K. I couldn't unmute, but you said everything that I was going to say, but I did want to make a quick comment about transportation. If you have transportation issues, I will drop my email in the chat. Email me and I will, as quickly as humanly, it's already there. I will quickly as humanly possible try to get a resolution for your situation. If not, I will escalate it. But we are working diligently to get through transportation issues. And those of you who have found yourself in a situation where your child is now a walker, it is related to some rerouting things. So there's not a lot we can do about that at the schoolhouse, but I can give you some suggestions on what to do if you're really concerned about your child walking 30 or 40 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. One thing I want, and I'm going to drop this link out. I'm going to share this in the chat real quick so we can make sure that everyone can have access to this presentation. I meant to do that earlier because there's a lot of live links in here. So I just want to make sure. Let's see here. Everyone's going to access this in the chat. The reason is, like, if you are want your students to be able to access their course schedule, you can click this link here and it gives you directions on how to do so. If your student forgot their password, all right, we do have a procedure in place. You can click the link over here where you can submit your name and information via Google form, and someone will be able to help you reset that password. And so I just want people to be able to access their schedules before you come in on orientation day on Friday, but also especially before you come in for the first day of school next week, Wednesday. Schedules are live already in SchoolMax and you can access them there. We also have a video in here from the student perspective of what it looks like to access your classrooms. And students, you could also use this QR code here for requesting a password reset if students have forgotten their login information for SchoolMax. Your SchoolMax login and their PGCPS email login are the same information. And so if you have one of them, you have both of them. Lastly, and this will be kind of a segue into the broader Q&A because there's a lot of very legitimate and obvious concerns about moving into an in-person learning environment during the COVID-19 crisis. We are not through this crisis, and so we are in a situation where we are not able to eliminate all risks. We are strictly trying to minimize risks, again, while maximizing learning. And first thing I want to talk about is if you wanted to contact the school to talk about perhaps reporting your own child, or we wanted to report that someone you know is a confirmed positive case at the school. If you wanted to talk to someone about maybe you're keeping your child out because they were a recent possible exposure to a confirmed positive case, who should you report that to at the school? If you're going to call the school to talk about health concerns or COVID concerns, please ask. You can call the main office, but ask to speak to a nurse. You don't need to speak to tell the main office people what it's entirely about. You don't need to divulge any personal information along those lines, but say, I wanted to talk to the nurse about some COVID-related concerns or health concerns related to my child. And from there, the nurse can ascertain if you need to talk to an administrator or other people to help get the assistance you want. Our two nurses are at the main building, Miss Suchi, new nurse to our school. She used to work at Bowie High School years ago, and we are happy to have her back. Some of you may know her from the Whitehall Elementary School community if your children went there. That's where she's coming from most recently. Also, Nurse Spate is still rejoining our team, and we're happy to have her. She'll be working primarily out of our 9th grade campus annex building this year. But I wanted to just speak more broadly about what happens, and I'm going off share mode here because I just wanted to speak to the community. In terms of confirmed positive cases of COVID-19 and what are we doing to handle these cases? Let's just say that there's a situation where a student is at school and the parent calls in and realizes that they are a confirmed positive case. What we would do in a particular moment like that is the nurse would quickly go find that student probably in their classroom and escort them and quarantine and isolate that student in what we're calling our care or isolation room. All right, so whenever we have a confirmed positive case, that's exactly what we'll quarantine and isolate that student or students involved. And from there, we'll interview the student to find out who they may have been in close contact with. Close contact has a very specific definition according to the CDC. And those are the guidelines that Prince George's County Public Schools are following, local health department following, and that we're following at Bowie High School. Someone is defined as a close contact if they were within 6 feet of someone for 15 or more minutes within a 24-hour period of time. Okay, and so if your child was deemed a close contact of a confirmed positive case, you would receive specific notification from the school that saying just that your child was exposed and identified as a close contact to someone who was a confirmed positive case of COVID-19. However, there will also be a more general notification that will go out to the school community to say a student at Bowie High School has recently been identified as a confirmed positive case. And that letter would say, if your child was designated as a close contact, you would receive a separate notification, which I just talked about right there. But ultimately, that's what it boils down to. If your child is a close contact, there's two outcomes that happen there. One, if your child is fully vaccinated, right now, they do not need to quarantine. They will not need to quarantine or isolate. They'll be able to remain at school and continue to monitor for symptoms for 10 to 14 days, right? That's if they're fully vaccinated. If they are not fully vaccinated, however, those children will be required to quarantine and isolate and monitor for 10 to 14 days. It's 10 days is the current guidance, and continue to monitor for symptoms. They will not be allowed to return to school. So any students who are deemed a close contact will also be pulled by administration and health, and we will determine their vaccination status. We'll communicate with families of, like, if your child is pulled from class for one of these reasons, we will be communicating with you as just as soon as we're also communicating with those students and determining vaccination status and talking about next steps from there. So we'll have a general notification that goes out to the community when we have confirmed positive cases, and a more specific communication that goes out to families and students who are confirmed close contacts. Those are the two types of notifications that we have for this type of case and the way we're responding to it for now. I also want to say that this situation continues to evolve. And as such, the guidelines also continue to evolve. And so when and if they do change over the days and weeks ahead, I'll make sure that we communicate those updated guidelines with the community, especially if anything changes about the notifications that I just described. I'll make sure that we communicate with the family about how we're going to handle those cases. But that is how we will respond in the event of confirmed positive cases for students at school. So that is really what all I had presented here. That was the better part of almost 30 minutes, but I wanted to open the floor, so to speak, for PTSO and the admin team to help moderate any questions that have come through.
All right, so it's your turn to ask any questions. It's a Q&A session, so if you have any further questions in the chat, and Lou Brown and I will moderate this portion of the program. So we have any questions? Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Miss Dr. Brent, there's a hand raised by Solange. So Solange, you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, well, I think what we're trying to do is just allow PTSO to moderate them, just to evolve, so if we could type the questions in the chat, just to cut down on the amount of people who are muting and unmuting at one time.
Right. Yeah, Mr. Copper, can you please address class sizes and COVID precautions that are taken inside the classrooms? That has come up.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so the CDC guidance for right now in schools is that students should be seated at least 3 feet apart. Okay, and we're absolutely going to be doing that in each of our classrooms and following that guidance. We hope that most students will be seated further than that, all right, in each cases. But with regards to class sizes, we're doing everything we can to keep class sizes as low as possible, wherever possible. But we have 2,400 students, and they all have graduation requirements that need to be met. And we only have so many teachers to teach those classes. And so you can see that that creates space constraints. So we will have some class sizes between 30 and 35 students. We have a hard cap at 35 at the max. And most of our classes, the overall majority, will not be at that number. Most are going to be under 30, but we will have some, and particularly in some of those graduation requirement classes that all students need to take in order to graduate. We do sometimes have space constraints and class sizing issues where students, we do get close to 35 students in those classes. The real area where we are trying to really curtail the number of students is in our cafeteria during lunchtime, where we're trying to open up multiple spaces where students can eat in addition to the cafeteria, including an adjacent outdoor space right next to the cafeteria, where we hope to be able to open it up to at least another 30 to 50 students to sit and stand if they'd like to outside, where we can monitor them safely. Obviously, weather permitting, Right now, we would not be outside because it's a torrential rainstorm, but we're going to open up multiple spaces in addition to our cafeteria, while also adding a 5th lunch to our normal 4 lunch schedule to reduce the total number of students going into the cafeteria for any one particular lunchtime. So those are some of the measures that we're taking to limit the number of students in the same spaces at one time.
All right, Mr. Kautzer, you also have a question. If a child is exposed to COVID and has to be sent home, how would their learning continue?
That's an excellent question. And so one thing all of our teachers are going to be doing is having either a Google Classroom set up, or they'll have a classroom set up in our new digital platform called Canvas. And it is going to be the platform where assignments will be given and turned in many cases. All right. And so there will be a way for students to be able to continue to be able to access material and turn in materials and receive feedback on assignments. At this time, though, it is also true if a student is under mandatory quarantine, right now we do not have a system in place for them to receive live instruction. And so if a student must miss 10 days due to being under a mandatory health quarantine because they are unvaccinated, it is true that they will lose access to live instruction. But the only students that would apply to are students who are deemed a close contact, all right, to a confirmed positive case, meaning they were within 6 feet of a confirmed, within 6 feet of a student for 15 minutes or more within a 24-hour period, all right? And also that student would also have to be unvaccinated themselves. So the only students who are going under those mandatory quarantine periods are students who are unvaccinated. So the best way to avoid that situation altogether would be to vaccinate your children. And I encourage the community, please, to do so. I realize it's a personal choice, but it is going to be the personal choice that allows our students in high school to have the most normal high school experience possible. It's the way that we're going to allow our athletics to continue. It's the only way, if we're going to be able to talk about having a high school dance, is if our students are vaccinated. Those things are going to be off the table so long as we have mandatory quarantines and mask wearing constraints in place. And so the only way we're going to quickly get back to that is when the majority of our students are safe and vaccinated. And so I'm imploring the community to please do this for eligible students.
All right, is it free lunch for everyone this year?
Yes, it is. Free lunch for all students. It'll be grab and go style in many cases, or bagged lunches, free for the entire school year.
And since lockers aren't going to be provided, are students required to have a specific type of book bag? Like clear bags or anything like that?
Yeah, good question. And I appreciate the gesture. A clear book bag is appreciated by all, but not required. It helps everyone feel safer to know the contents of a book bag, but it is not a PGCPS requirement at this time.
How do students get back and forth between the two buildings, from the annex to the main building?
Yeah, excellent question. So there's only a subset of 9th grade students. So first of all, let me back up. It's only our 9th grade students who have the majority of their classes at the 9th grade campus. There are no upper class students, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade students who take classes in the 9th grade building. But who are the students that are 9th graders that take classes in the main building? It is our 9th grade students who have some of them, I'm going to call them just upper level or advanced classes. For example, Spanish 3. We do have a lot of 9th graders who come in taking Spanish 3. We don't offer that currently in our 9th grade campus. We only offer that in our main building. Other classes would be our more advanced orchestra classes. Those are the types of classes that if students are coming into 9th grade, already qualifying for those upper level classes, which are typically the majority of 10th, 11th, and 12th grade students, what we do is we have shuttles running at the beginning of 3rd period and the beginning of 4th period. We're kind of like a small airport. We have shuttles running between the two campuses throughout the day to pick up the students, but it's usually not more than 50 students at any given time going between the buildings, just between periods 3 and 4.
And also SchoolMax, if there's information needs to be updated, who do we need to talk to if they still have not updated it?
Good question. There are PGCPS resources on the main websites about family portal help. And so I would say first, make sure you consult with those resources. And if someone's able to link in any of those district resources in the chat right now, I think that would be useful. So start there, because many of them are helpful and can walk you through the exact problems that you have. But from there, I would say, please contact our guidance secretaries. That would be Miss Barry and Miss Kelly Cohen would be our two guidance secretaries who you could contact to help troubleshoot those concerns.
You had a couple of questions regarding the hybrid or virtual options. Are there any options for that?
There is no hybrid option this year. We are in person only. However, let me just put the asterisk in there. There are certain students, if you are, for example, if you are 16 years old or older and you have already 10 credits cumulatively earned, you are qualified to enroll in what is our virtual evening program. And so those students only qualify for that special program, which can be entirely virtual. I think you can take, counseling team, if you can help me on this, is it 4 credits a semester? I think you can take at a time to be able, and the virtual evening program. Ms. Kaplan, how many credits can they enroll in at a time in the virtual evening school?
For the one at Bowie High School or for the actual county one?
For the virtual evening program for Bowie High School.
They can enroll in 4 courses a semester. They have to be 16 years of age, have earned at least 10 credits, and they have to be 10th through 12th grade.
Exactly. And so that is the only, I'm going to call it virtual option because it is entirely virtual. You wouldn't need to be in person. And so if you were looking to not be in person and you are qualifying 10th through 12th grader, that is an option available. You should reach out to your school counselor in order to explore that option and to talk about how to make it happen.
Like those who are having issues with their scheduling and need changes made, who do they need to contact?
Ms. Kaplan, you want to pipe up on that?
They do not need to contact anybody. Actually, what they need to do is fill out the Google form that was shared on all Google Classrooms and emailed to each student. And I'm also going to put the link to our website in the chat again, and it is found by scrolling to the bottom. There's a Google form they need to complete, and then their school counselor will be in contact with them to let them know if it was approved or denied the first or second week of school. Currently, right now, we are working on newly enrolled students. We need to ensure that every student has a schedule prior to us then looking to schedule changes. So we ask for your patience. We do see them. We have a ton already, so we're not ignoring you if you've emailed your counselor or you emailed your student's counselor. It's just that we are our priority right now is making sure all students have a schedule in our system prior to the first day of school.
Are students required to wear masks?
Yes, thank you. I can't believe I didn't even say that, but yes, mask requirement at all times, except for when students are eating or drinking. But we're asking students to not just bring one mask, but bring multiple masks throughout the day in case something happens to the one that they're wearing upon arrival. So yes, masks are required for all students. There might be some very rare medical exemptions to that, in which case the families need to communicate with our nurses about what those would be and their specific paperwork to complete related to that.
All right, thank you. And then the last question here, let me see, Chromebooks, are they required for all students?
Yeah, yes, thank you. We're asking all students to bring their Chromebook devices to school with them every single day, along with the chargers. I'm very thankful. I think one of the best things to come out of the COVID crisis in our public school system is the move to a 1-to-1 device to student ratio for the first time in Prince George's County Schools history. And so all students have access to a device like this. And yes, we want it to be part in the same way that you're putting your shoes on in the morning, bring your Chromebook in your backpack along with the charger and bring it to you with school. Charge it up every night.
All right, well, that's all of the questions, Mr. Counselor. We would like to thank you and your team for taking the time to go over these with us. You gave us some really good information to clearly get us an understanding of how this is going to roll out the first few weeks of school at the beginning of school, and we want to thank you for that. Since there are no other questions, this is it. This is the end of our program. We'd like to thank you again for coming out to attend this. Again, our next meeting or our next session will be September 17th, the third Tuesday of September. So listen out for that. Thank you again for joining us. Have a good evening, everyone.
Dr. Bright, this is Lou Brown. Some questions are continuing to flow. Mr. K, are you able to hold on to answer any other questions as they continue to flow in?
Yeah, I absolutely am. I'm planning to be here till 7. So that is absolutely what we have on the schedule. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Possibly make mention, sorry, of back to school night, the date, to just save the date for that.
September 22nd, 3 weeks from today, virtual back to school night. It will be right around the same time, probably 5:30 to 8 p.m.
There's an ongoing question being asked about the buses and their travel practices on the buses.
Could you clarify the question from their travel practices?
Yeah, I'm sorry, let me just pull the question back up. It's come up a few times if someone sees it.
It looks like they're asking about, it looks like they're asking about for 9th graders in orientation who have classes in the main building. Will they be traveling back and forth, or will they just stay in the 9th grade building?
Fantastic question. And this is, during orientation day, we will not be running shuttles between both buildings. The primary reason why is because it's a half-day schedule, and the amount of time that it would take them to transfer between one building and the other, that class time will have elapsed. All right, even though it's only a 5-minute bus ride, students are only going to be in their class periods for about 15 to 20 minutes in that particular day. And so we didn't want them to spend more time on the bus than in their actual class meeting their teachers. And so we'll have designated spaces for students to go if they're in that category. Again, it's really a smaller subset of total students who fall into that category, and we'll have space for them to go in the 9th grade campus.
I'm assuming this question is from a student, 9th grade student actually. How will I be able to join school clubs in person? Are 9th graders allowed to join clubs?
Yes, and thank you for asking. And we look forward to seeing you next week, or really this Friday. But the very first part of our orientation on Friday will be some of our student leaders talking to you about that very subject, about the different clubs and extracurricular offerings we have at Bowie High School and how to get involved. So that is really the first part of our orientation, led by some of our senior students and our SGA coordinators and advisors. I think one of the best things about Bowie High School is, it's one of the best things about having a large high school with 2,400 students is we are not only extraordinarily diverse, but like any university, there is just something for everyone. So no matter what you are into, whether it be video games or football, there is something for you to do. There are other like-minded people like you at Bowie High School for you to connect with. And there is a corresponding club for you to find those like-minded people. And so that is very much one of our goals as administrators, as counselors, as a school team, to make sure students can connect with one another and find that sense of community. There is just something.
Mr. Council, there's some questions in the YouTube chat that I'm trying to read as well. But one that keeps coming up: do students need to bring their Chromebook to orientation day?
Hadn't thought about that. Team, what do you think?
They need a device because they need to access
the PowerPoint and links and
yes, they're gonna.
Yeah, I'll say if they don't have a cell phone device, to bring your Chromebook device. All right, it is not going to be a requirement for anything that they're going to be doing that particular day. We'll assume that students don't have one and everything that we're doing. However, it won't be a problem to have it, and it's not a requirement.
There's also been a few, I'm sorry, Ms. Addison, about the virtual school option and those families that have applied for the virtual school and have not heard back, and what should their next steps be?
Yeah, good question. I would apply, if you have not heard back for some reason, you should have heard back by now and heard either that you were confirmed or waitlisted or denied. Or I don't know the exact email address, Ms. Kaplan. I don't know if you know, it's like whatever you would have sent your application into, like virtualschool@pgcps.org or something like that. And
I can put it in the chat, Mr. Counselor.
That is exactly who you would follow up with. We really don't know on our end who is and is not enrolled. We really are depending on correspondence from that office to tell us who's enrolled and what their status is. And so I wish that we could tell you that information on our end, but we do not have it. And so if you have not heard and you're looking for it, it's to follow up with that particular office. I don't have a phone number to go along with that office, just an email address, right?
All right, Mr. Kautzer, will desks be sanitized between classes?
So we're actively reviewing that exact procedure with our building services team right now. That was part of the protocols last spring, but I believe it's being updated and reconsidered to what extent needs to happen. We do have a lot of hand sanitizer wipes that we'll be having in our classrooms. And in most cases, asking students to take one and wipe down the desk that they're about to go sit in upon arrival. And that's most likely the way we're going to be handling that.
And then where can students park if they drive?
Great question. Ms. Delaney, can you talk a little bit about that?
Fantastic. I'm sorry, I have a little one near bedtime, but students will park. There's a parking link on the Bowie website. They will park on the side of the BCPA. So there is a parking application where they will update their documents, and they will park on the side there. They could email me with any questions. But yeah, there's more than enough parking on the side there.
So student parking is on a side right by the right in front of the library, and there is a parking permit process for students that will go in effect when?
October 1st is when we will start. So there's actually an administrative procedure. We follow all county guidelines when it comes to this. And so they have to pay a $20 application fee, and we issue the parking hang tag. If you have some students, they may sometimes have their mom's car, their dad's car, their brother's car. They will only do one application for those. They don't have to apply for each different car they will use.
Mr.
It's always good to hear Livy in the background, Ms. Delaney.
The question was earlier about safety protocols on the bus regarding the 3 feet. We do know that Dr. Golson was very specific about windows being down when appropriate for ventilation, but can you speak a little bit to that? There's a parent who's posting that question.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be, they're going to maximize airflow on the buses wherever possible, the exact same like you just mentioned. And the students are going to be encouraged to sit far apart from one another as possible, wherever possible. But that's exactly, the rules that the CDC says we should be following. And I know the school system has adopted them as well. And I'll say likewise at the school, we're going to be doing the same thing. We're going to be encouraging our teachers to be creative and allow them to use outdoor spaces. Additionally, where possible and where safe, when we can still monitor children, but we want our teachers to be able to think creatively about when they can utilize more outdoor spaces as well for live in-person instruction.
Mr. Kautzer,
go ahead.
Sorry, could you speak to the issue of lockers? There's been several questions. Lockers, and then what supplies does my student need? My 10th grader was the question, but if you talk about lockers and talk about supplies necessary.
Yes, so the district is saying right now that students will not have access to lockers this school year. And so personal belongings should come in a backpack along with them. When we talk about what does a student need, your typical pens and pencils and notebooks, they're going to have 8 classes if they're a typical student. So I would say a corresponding place to take notes and notebook for each one of those classes and a way to organize the papers that go along with them. You can find a typical, in the Bulldog Blast that has gone out recently on our school website, I have a link to just some basic supplies. I have a first grader of my own, and I promise you that our school supply list is nowhere near as daunting as the typical elementary school supplies list. Ours is pretty rudimentary. One thing I would just ask you to add to that is masks. That, consider that part of the daily thing you must bring to school with you each day, along with your Chromebook computer and charger.
You have a question about Chromebook repair or replacement. Who do they need to talk to?
Yeah, excellent question. We'll be inventorying those students, so they should bring their device with them on the first couple of days of school, and we'll have a procedure in place for them to coordinate with our IT specialist, Mr. Austin. about exactly the procedures in place. And it's going to depend on, whether or not money is owed will depend on the circumstances on a case-by-case basis in terms of what happened to the device. But in some cases, there may be monies owed if there was negligence in the destruction of the property. But in either case, there'll be procedures in place in the opening days of school for families to return those devices and get new ones as needed.
Thank you. And if a child needs one, there'll also be someone there to take care of that as well, correct?
Yeah, so tomorrow, 9 to 11, right? And we'll have our first, we canceled today's because of the weather, but tomorrow, 9 to 11 outside the main building, we'll have an opportunity, not required and to come, but there'll also be additional opportunities, both during orientation, but particularly on the first days of school.
All right. It sounds like you've answered all of the questions, except are there any more questions on live streaming?
Ms. Sandra Lewis has been diligently trying to, can you unmute Ms. Lewis? And then I see also Camille has her hand up as well.
All right, diligently trying to what? I'm trying to figure this out.
Ms. Sandra Lewis has been waving. Can you unmute yourself, Ms. Lewis?
And if she can't unmute.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate you acknowledging that. I've been waiting diligently. So my daughter is a 12th grader, and she transferred from St. John's, and she only required one. She only needs one credit to graduate. She already has her 20 credits. And I think with all the PG County schools, you guys need 21, and she's already at 20. So she's only, I think they said she had to, but I think they're splitting them up for her. So I just needed to get some information on that because she wants to do virtual. And also she has allergies and underlying conditions. So her doctor did not approve for her to have the vaccine as yet. So I wanted to know, is there any way she can do her classes virtually? Because I mean, she's been doing it virtually for the longest at St. John's.
Yeah.
Mrs. Lewis, you need to contact her school counselor directly via email with that question, and they can work with you. But please note that every student per PGCPS policy, every senior, regardless of credits, has to be enrolled in at least 4 courses. And if they, with exceptions, or not with exceptions, every student traditionally has 8 courses. And then if they're doing a program, a CTE, have work release, approved dual enrollment, then they would only have to be enrolled in 4. So with that being said, please reach out to your child school counselor to further discuss those options.
Child school counselor. And how do I get in contact? I just call the school and find out who her counselor is?
Nope, that information is on our website under Meet Our Team, and I'm going to put that link in the chat for you to access that information.
You said under Meet Our Teams?
Yes. Yep, it's on the left-hand side of the website.
Okay.
And now I'm sorry, you finished?
Don't worry about it. I'll just call the school. Don't worry about it because I have another meeting to get to. I'm sorry. It's just, I've been waiting so long to get all these questions in. I have a few other questions. I'll just contact the school counselor.
Okay. Anybody else?
Waited way too long.
There's some questions on the YouTube chat, the chat. And one of them being, and it could have been answered, so I apologize. I've been reading and typing, so I can't keep up. But regarding changing for gym class, will that still occur?
Excellent question. We're actually really in consultation right now with the curriculum office, or the physical education curriculum office, about this very question. It's especially in light of the locker rules that have changed recently. We're really exploring whether or not they should be and will be changing this school year. So we don't actually have the answer to that question just yet.
I have a couple of COVID-related questions. One is, are students required to show proof of vaccination, those who are vaccinated? And then another question is, looking forward into the future, is there a plan to transition? Is there a plan B, I suppose, transition to virtual learning if case count dictates that?
Yeah, so first question related to student vaccinations. There's no requirement. All vaccination requirements, immunization requirements for students are entirely dictated by the Maryland State Department of Education. And right now there is no rule in place, even though the FDA just approved The Pfizer vaccine, I think, it is currently not a requirement for students, and therefore there is no requirement to show proof of vaccination. I'll say though that all PGCPS staff, however, have recently had to show proof of vaccination status or be subjected to weekly ongoing testing for COVID-19. But there is no requirement in place for students. The second question related to movement into hybrid or virtual options, that is something that is going to be completely dictated by the local health department, our school executive branch and school board. That will not be a Bowie High School related decision. That's something that will come from those governing bodies and agencies. And so I don't have a further information about that. There's been no discussion of moving particularly in that direction. So that's something that we would all be looking for the guidance on should the situation require that. That's kind of where we are. We're waiting, if the situation would devolve or worsen, we would be looking for guidance from the local health department and the local school board about next steps.
All right. Are students required to wear a gym uniform? You're getting more questions. You want me to still continue?
I'm happy to go. I do have a hard stop at 7. I told the missus I would be home to help with bedtime for my little ones tonight. But that's my only hard stop tonight.
Well, that's
but with regards to the gym uniforms, we are still in consultation, like I was saying, with the physical ed curriculum office about their expectations regarding that development. So to be determined.
And one about student ID, how does students get that? And also drop off, what's the earliest students can be dropped off?
Yeah, let me start with the drop off one because that's a really critical question. We do not have staff in place to monitor your children before 7 a.m. So if you drop off any children before 7 a.m., they will be unsupervised and unmonitored. They will not be allowed in the building at that time either. So they will remain outside regardless of weather, and it'll be unsupervised. So do not drop children off before 7 a.m. I'll start there. I forgot what the other parts of the question. There's a couple other questions you mentioned there as well.
Could you also express if we drop off after 7, what time students are actually allowed inside the building?
Yeah, students are allowed in certain designated spaces beginning at 7:15 a.m. And so we do start offering a breakfast for students in our cafeteria space at 7:15 in the morning. The school day begins promptly at 7:45.
All right, and then the last question was about student ID. How does one obtain a student ID for school
Yeah, thank you, I forgot. Yeah, and in the opening weeks of the school year, we have Life Touch company who comes in, and then we bring students in through their English classes to get their pictures taken at designated times at the school, and they get their IDs then and there. They should have one before October.
Okay, well, that's it. Thanks again. And that's it for tonight.
Yeah, well, thank you, Dr. Brent. Thank you, PTSO Exec Board, for moderating this and helping to sponsor this event. Thank you, school staff, our professional school counselors, Ms. Kaplan and team, and administrator here. I appreciate you all very much for joining in. Thank you, parents, for entrusting us with your children. I'm really excited to see the students this year. That's one of the things I missed the most in the last year and a half. It's the reason I'm in education, is to work with children in person. And it's where the daily spontaneity of working with children and the energy that they bring is what motivates me as an educator. And I'm really looking forward to having that energy back in the schoolhouse 1 week from today. So thank you all for joining us tonight. Continue to be in touch and stay safe.